welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. Little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP, you're going to get 20% off your order with that code FNP at simbody.com. You're really, really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks question mark kicks.
Just like that, we're back with Fight Night Picks. Listen, it's question mark kicks ahead of UFC 277. The rematch is Nunes, Pena. You also have Brandon Morono, Kai Kara-France. As always, one half of your host, Craig Allen, Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, respective socials, Matt Allen FNP. Matt, the chat is absolutely insane. Prince Fugitt done, Steven C, Ethan Schneider, Chris McDowell, Leo's hanging out, Kai Zimmerman, Call Money, Huey Hoopin, Austin Lefebvre. Does he know Brian Lefebvre? There's so many people over there in that chat that are having a good time. Alex Gagnon as well, saying guy on the left, white shirt. What are we? Listen, sometimes you follow Spanish soccer.
Yeah, normally you yell at me when I'm wearing white because of the lighting.
The thing though, it doesn't pop too bad today, so we're just gonna go with that. With the new ring light, everything's working. But it should be an interesting pay-per-view card because there are a lot of hard matchups on this card. You have a few debuts. You have Adam Fugitt taking on Michael Morales. You also have Ihor Potieria taking on Nicolae Negumereanu. We got demonetized for me saying his last name. And on a manual review, we got demonetized on that. So Nicolae taking on Ihor. We'll stick to the first names on that one. But it should be a lot of fun. And it's one of those cards that I know there's a lot of people kind of getting excited about this one, and not even just for the matchups and the title fights.
Because there are a lot of fun fights scattered all throughout this card. I know I've been borderline far too excited about Alex Morono versus Matt Semelsberger. Just a fun fight to see where those guys fit in the whole grand scheme of the division, because we all know how good welterweight is, how deep welterweight is, but there is a bit of a changing of the guard between some of the older top contenders and some of these new rising stars, so that's a really important fight for the division, because the winner of that could very well get one of those like borderline top 15 talents next, and we all know how much fun even those fights are in the welterweight division. That's a really fun one. The return of Drakkar Klose, can he get back into the top 15 that he used to flirt with? Like, a ton of fun fights all the way up and down this card.
So many fun fights, and as you saw from the start of the show, next weekend, Santos versus Jamal Hill in the main event. Co-main event, Vicente Luque taking on Jeff Neal. And then you have the Ultimate Fighter finales, Brogan Walker taking on, it's just such a bad name, Killer Juliana Miller. And in the heavyweight, you have Muhammad Usman taking on Zach Pauga. I think it should be a fun one. Monday, it's a holiday throughout most of Canada. So, hey, New Brunswick Day. Let's go. Let's go. I bet there's so many people that have never seen the New Brunswick flag out there.
It's pretty cool.
It's a ballin' provincial flag. So if you didn't know, now you know. There's a boat in that one. It should be a lot of fun. Matt, question mark kicks, as we always do. We throw it on over to the fight of the night. And I want to hear from the people over there in the chat, because there's people throwing their picks out there. Nomad Gladiator's just getting so intense. I'm going to get myself in a frame a little bit. Alessandro Pantoja taking on Alex Perez. Absolute banger at 125. And this is one of those fights that, again, people seem to be talking about this one quite a bit leading into this weekend's card.
These are both guys who, let's be honest, on any given day, they could probably hold the title in this division. That's how fun flyweight is right now, and those are the divisions that I really like. Yes, there's one thing to be said for like an Usman or an Adesanya, just kind of rule over their weight class, but in a weight class where anybody could hold the title in any given event, I really like these kind of fights. So you know that Pantoja and Perez are probably going to set themselves up for a title shot if they're able to get the win, and I think this is going to be an incredible fight. You know Perez is going to want to prove something after his last title shot didn't go all that well against Figueiredo, and for Pantoja, he's been in there against pretty much all the top guys in the weight class, so if he can get another really good win for his resume, I don't know how you deny him the next title shot.
Yeah, it's a great great opportunity. And then the other thing, I mean, Davison Figueiredo hanging out. Maybe he thinks he can cash in the money in the bank after Morono and Kai Kara-France fight, and then he can just keep the belt and fight one of these guys. But it should be a lot of fun. And if we have a look at our second pick, I mean, Drew Dober taking on Rafael Alves. What a banger at 155. Alves just going up on the scale. Kyle OM hitting up the super chat. Much appreciated, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
But you look at it, I mean, Alves goes up on the scale like the official weigh-ins, and he's banging his chest and he's getting into it. James Lloyd hitting up the big super chat saying flyweight never die.
Exactly.
James Lloyd, MVP of the show already, but Alves super into it. Weighed in right on point at 155. You love to see that after the kind of trials and tribulations at 145. And for Drew Dober, a guy who my wife goes, he has a square jaw for the first time she had ever seen him. She was not wrong. But this should be a great fight. I mean, Nomad saying Dober for the win. Drew saying, I've got Drew here. You have to. But I didn't pick Craig last weekend, and that got really weird in the chat.
It did.
This should be a good fight, though, and I'm really looking forward to it.
It should be, because on Drew Dober's best day, he is one of those 15 to 10 guys who can offer pretty much anyone in the division a really tough fight. I'm not saying he beats all those guys, but anybody can have one of those fight of the night fights with Drew Dober. And for Alves, I think we've seen him in some spots look amazing, and then in some others, leave us a little bit more to be desired. But here's the thing. I don't think I could have a different body type in the world than these two men do. Like, we don't even look like we're the same species. But that's the thing about Alves. I noticed that too. He looked great at the weigh-ins. So I do think his physicality is going to be a really important factor in this fight. But this should be an incredible fight in the lightweight division.
Luis Rodriguez hitting up the super chat there as well. Super chat's going crazy so far. Continued support from one of the OG followers. Keep up the incredible work, fellas. Luis, it has been a wild run the last 4 or 5 cards. And there's some fights on this one coming up this weekend. I was kind of going back through my notes, looking at it. I thought, geez, that's a 50-50 fight. I landed on this side, but I can make a good argument for the other fighter. So it is a tricky one to try and get right this week. But again, that chat is absolutely going nuts. And Brian's saying Craig buys Christmas. No, there's not going to be a Christmas calendar this year. Maybe. Who knows? Orion Cosce's taking on Mike Diamond coming up this weekend.
He is.
Mike Diamond, like an 80s film star, Mike Diamond. I mean, on Embedded they went with that, but then at the the ceremonial weigh-ins last night, it was back to Blood Diamond, so kept the graphic where it was. Orion Cosce, though, the reason why we update the graphics, Colin Money, Kai by TKO, Lewis by KO, Nunes by TKO. Wow.
It'd be wild if there were that many stoppages.
But on this one, Matt, I mean, listen, people talking about Orion Cosce, Blood Diamond. Orion Cosce weighs in 172.5. Looks not terribly drawn out, but also, like, didn't look all that great. I mean, buddy, what are we doing? Like, the Cosce brothers train it's hit the skids.
It really has, and that's the thing. It's not, this fight's really gotten to the point where it's like, okay, who stacks up the least amount of negatives when you really think about it? Because I do think Orion Cosce is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist in this matchup. Not a wild thing to say. He's fighting a guy who's basically a pure kickboxer. So do I dislike the weight miss more than I dislike the one-dimensionalness from Mike, formerly known as Blood Diamond? That's the thing. I'm still going to stick with Cosce if I'm being completely honest. Like, I still like his ability to wrestle, and if his chin and cardio haven't been completely destroyed by the weight cut, I do think he has a really good chance to win this fight, but it's kind of the point where I have no idea what we're going to get, what we're going to see, what version of either guy we're going to see. There's a very good argument to be made that this isn't even going to look like a UFC caliber fight by the time we get it.
Yeah, like, I look at this one, this is very well a fight. Now that Cosce's missed weight, maybe have Blood Diamond knocking him out early, he's not so fresh. Orion Cosce open to minus 150s, minus 191. Blood Diamond coming in, the underdog, plus 164. We have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes. And listen, it's kind of seesawed here, but 60% going with Cosce to 40% going with Blood Diamond. And we touched on it. I mean, Blood Diamond doesn't want to fight in years. He beat Dimps Gillies, and then he sat on the sidelines. He loses to Jeremiah Wells, who's a very good ground fighter. Jeremiah Wells, much better fighter than Orion Cosce.
I would agree.
And I mean, yeah, Wells has been a former champ in a couple of different organizations. And he even, again, forgot what he was doing and ran into the fence to start that fight and was still able to recover, and beat Blood Diamond and have one shot absorbed against Diamond.
It was impressive.
So it really is tough. I mean, I'll take Cosce in this matchup as well because I had him at the start of the week due to the wrestling advantage. But again, now this is the one where I could definitely see Blood Diamond knocking him out, and I'd feel kind of stupid about taking Cosce if he does lose this one. And it's pretty well on him because we were pretty strong, like pro Cosce at the start of the week. And now I'm 50-50, and if you like a shot on Blood Diamond, then go for it.
I'd say I was like 80-20, and now I'm like 55-45, I'm being completely honest. So I'm going to stick with the Cosce pick, but there's a lot of red flags. Do not lose your hard-earned money betting on this fight.
Wild Hog saying, think Blood Diamond will look improved. Hopefully he does. He has a
look
fellow
worse.
City Kickboxing teammate fighting for a title in this card in Kai France, Matt. Next fight. Now, this was one that I was surprised more people didn't bring up at the start of the week. And I'm going to start this video off in a different way because I'm going to tell you what the votes are at Fight Night Picks in the Instagram story. 73% of the underdog Negumereanu, 27% Ihor Potieria. I'm pretty damn close on this fight either way. Again, Ihor Potieria, international master of combat sambo. He's a master of sport in pancration. I mean, a couple of good disciplines to have, especially the sambo. Obviously, you've seen sambo fighters reach good heights, high heights in the UFC and abroad in different mixed martial arts organizations. Don't love his takedown defense. Don't love that he just grabs for underhooks in the clinch and doesn't really do much with it. He wings shots across the cage, but uses his length very well. Like, I will say that. And if you do look at it for Potieria, he has been hittable against lesser competition. But for Negumereanu, the same thing could be said. He does throw hooks really in tight. Like, he's a... I mean, I know when you look at it height-wise, reach-wise, whatever, Potieria might have certain advantages. Jean Carlos, much appreciated there on the old Super Chat and saying, can you talk about pricing a pay-per-view at the end? It's bad. It's bad for this one. It's not worth what they're asking you for, but that is what it is. When it comes down to this fight, though, Matt, again, I don't have a ton of confidence in either guy, and when we're trying to cap the ceiling for either fighter, top 15's a stretch, and light heavyweight's a wide-open division.
No, I couldn't agree more. I just think Nicolae is the more UFC-ready guy. And you look at Ihor's record and you're like, wow, he has so much experience. But it's against guys who he was fully expected to beat at the time. Like, he has a lot of wins over guys who he was expected to beat. Now, that does get you a lot more experience of in-cage knowledge, but it doesn't get you ready for big fights. And at least with Nicolae, he does have big power on the feet if he is able to land. He does have that wrestling in his back pocket, although we haven't really seen it to its fullest effect in the UFC. So I still like the Nicolae pick just because I feel a lot more confident with his salty record than I do in Ihor's almost picture-perfect one.
Yeah, I mean, picture-perfect, but also salty at the same time because there are a lot of fighters that you would have expected him to beat. Potieria open to minus 200, plus 103 at this point, so now he is the underdog. Negumereanu, when we made the video, was the underdog. He's now a minus 120 favorite, so apparently we don't have the underdog anymore, and public sentiment went over to Negumereanu. Transylvania Pain Train is what Kurtar is saying. Wow, that's aggressive.
I'm going to keep on saying Nicolae.
Nicolae Rianu. Like Keanu.
You've said it like 7 times since.
Jeon Kim's taking on Joselyne Edwards. And the reason why we do Fight Night Picks !kicks is to talk about the weigh-ins. Joselyne Edwards walks up, pops the shirt off. We're going to have some fun. No, we're not. And I was watching, and the feed that I was watching was on UFC.tv. And they kind of like, they had it zoomed into the scale. And you could see between 40 and 35 was where the thing was, and the guy kept going closer to 40. I thought, oh boy, either he doesn't know how to use the scale, or Joselyne Edwards and the rest of everybody, they're in for a bad surprise. And 137.5 didn't cut any more of the additional weight, so she misses weight by, 1.5 pounds to get to 136. She loses 20% of her purse to Jeon Kim, as does Orion Cosce to Mike Diamond. So in this matchup, Matt, Joselyne Edwards won a fight at 145 a month ago against Ramona Pasquale. She looked very good forward movement, defended all the takedowns. But Matt, in the comment section, Kyle M saying Edwards via decision. Canadians for the cup, Kim by decision by volume. And then I also saw some people saying, well, Jeon Kim, if she went to a decision against Molly McCann, she's going somewhere, and you got caught up in the hype train, pal, because that's what that is.
She just moves her feet way too much. It's always been a problem for me. She doesn't really sit down on any of her shots. And for Joselyne Edwards, she does really need a win. Like I said that in the earlier one. This is both fighters need a win because, let's be honest, neither's proven that they're at the UFC level. Like, yes, a win over Ramona Pasquale is impressive at 145, but you beat Ramona Pasquale. Like, that doesn't prove that you belong at this level. So they both really do need a win, and I can't believe that I'm picking 2 straight fighters who have missed weight, but I'm not going to switch the pick on this fight. I still think Joselyne Edwards has a much higher probability of hurting Jeon Kim than the other way around, and if she is able to start walking her down and hitting her with a lot of volume, I just don't know what the response from Kim is going to be. She might be able to do some grappling on Edwards. We've seen Edwards with some shoddy takedown defense in the past, but I still like her upright style and her ability to move her feet to help counter some some of the takedowns of Kim.
Williams LeBanner hitting up the super chat with the how's it going? Is like a sticker that moves. So do you know Jerome? That's all I can say to Williams LeBanner. Do you know Jerome? He beat Kyle Robertson one time in kickboxing. When it does come down to this fight, I love the camp change for Jeon Kim going over to Bangtao Muay Thai. We've seen the Hickman brothers in a couple of different camps coming up for the card this weekend. You saw them on the stage at the ceremonial weigh-ins. So I love that. And for Kim training with Zhang Wei Li, Loma Lukmanmi, and the like over there, I think that works out very well. Joselyne Edwards, very good kickboxer. And as it was said over there in the comments section, you know, you look at these two fighters, it's like Muay Thai. Phoenix had said it. It's like Muay Thai with 4-ounce gloves. You look at the odds here. Joselyne Edwards open a plus 130, minus 130 at this point. For Jeon Kim, open minus 150, plus 107. For Kim, she was originally supposed to be taking on Maria Agapova. A couple of weeks ago, they announced that this was going to be the fight. And of course, Joselyne Edwards misses weight. At Fight Night Picks on the Instagram story, 50-50 split right down the middle. Wow. Kim has 162 votes and Edwards has 160, so very, very close on that vote. I have Joselyne Edwards, but if you want to make, again, a strong case for Jeon Kim, a lot of these women stepping in as unranked fighters have been hitting as underdogs lately, so good opportunity for Kim. We'll see who can land the better volume. I tend to side with the kicker more than the boxer, which is why I do have Joselyne Edwards, but a good Wushu Sanda background for Jeon Kim. So Matt, we'll move into the next fight. It's just unprofessional BS, as Crashmore would say. Unprofessional BS. You're missing the weight. We have Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugitt. And for Adam Fugitt, the Fight Night Picks fans don't have him to win. 92% of the fans have Michael Morales, 8% have Fugitt. This is all I'm going to say on this fight. If Adam Fugitt can catch Michael Morales walking in, not respecting him like he did Solomon Renfro's last time, maybe he knocks him dead with a right hook, like a lead right hook like he did his last time out. Barring that, I see him having a very tough night out against Michael Morales, but I will say this, Matt, on 4 days' notice, the guy made weight at 171, so friggin' caps off, golf clap to him, he really did it. I like that.
Michael Morales is going to be one of those guys who steps in on short notice to fight a ranked fighter and he'll probably beat them in the first round. I'm not joking when I say that. Like, remember when Alexander Hernandez knocked out Benil Dariush, which was a really big deal? There's some other examples. Josh Emmett when he fought Ricardo Lamas. Like, sometimes it'll happen. You have two ranked fighters. One guy ends up not being able to fight, so they give you a short notice fighter who's very dangerous. Michael Morales is that short notice fighter who'd be very dangerous. He's young. He has great strikes. He's a phenomenal grappler. And really, his last fight against Trevin Giles was one of the most impressive UFC debuts I've seen to date. Not only was he able to beat him, he beat a guy who has a ton of experience against some really good fighters in the UFC, and he made him look like he wasn't even at this level. So for Michael Morales, I think he's going to look great tonight, and I really do project a high ceiling for him moving forward.
I think he's going to be really good. I mean, he does have a high tie stance, but he doesn't really block shots all that great. But I do expect high tie stance against Fugitt, who from distance likes to throw just the spam of a left kick to the head, to the body. I think it's going to work out for Morales. And I think Morales is going to be able to win out in some of those grappling exchanges. Rob G saying any hot sauce bets for the sidekick later? Maybe we will, Rob. I actually got a couple of bottles of hot sauce for the old B-Day today, so that could happen. Michael Morales open minus 500, minus 648. And for Adam Fugitt, the biggest underdog. I mean, plus 449 at this point. Maybe he's got an opportunity, but barring some like wild things, like you said, I don't see Fugitt getting the win here. Good opportunity in the UFC, and I mean, similar to a guy whose ceiling I've had a hard time projecting, like Jason Witt, who fights next weekend. Jason Witt, so the Vanilla Gorilla 2.0. The next fight, Matt, we have...
Oh, a fun one.
Drakkar Klose taking on Rafa Garcia, and in this one, again, both guys incredibly professional. They both made the weight. Rafa Garcia coming in on short notice for this one, and for Drakkar Klose, looked very good his last time out against Brandon Leroy Jenkins. And it's one of those funny fights where, for Drakkar Klose, been out for about 2 years since the Jeremy Stevens push, where he had like the whiplash, concussion issues, so on and so forth. And if you look at it for Klose, I mean, he was a giant favorite, like a minus 600 and more favorite to beat Brandon Jenkins. So really did look good. Hand speed still there. Power still there. Leo Bonneville saying Canadian bacon versus pepperoni. Who y'all got?
They're not very similar, to be honest.
Not really. I had some Canadian bacon for breakfast today. Canadian bacon's almost like ham.
Exactly.
And pepperoni
is... It's a thick sliced ham, and pepperoni's a cured meat. So I'm going to say Canadian bacon for breakfast, but pepperoni for pizza. That's how I'll break it up.
How about that one? I like that one. when it does come down to this matchup, though, Matt, I mean, for Drakkar Klose, you know there's experience there, the high school wrestling chops, so on and so forth, had sights and designs on wrestling in college, and that was kind of cut short a little bit, but from that, parlay that into an early entry into MMA. For Rafa Garcia, taking part in Champ Camp with a special guest role in Black Panther 2, Kamaru Usman. DC let that one slip yesterday. And then he's also training with Justin Gaethje. He was part of, Gaethje's camp for his last fight. And for Garcia, also part of training in California with Cub Swanson and the guys at Ruka Sport and the other gym. So it is an interesting matchup. And I know at the start of the week, we were kind of split on this one. Pulse Reloaded, Diali Poutine on the reg.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm in Quebec, hardcore. And that's often, so there's a lot of Benny & Co. If you're from Quebec, you let me know what you think of Benny & Co.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff. So, Matt, when it does come to this one, overall, what is the pick here?
I still do have, and I don't mean this because we're separated on the pick, but I have a decent level of confidence in Drakkar Klose, and this is the reason why. Rafa Garcia is going to have to walk into some shots to win this fight. He's just going to. To win, he's going to have to get on the inside of the range of Drakkar Klose, threaten with his wrestling, do some of his own striking up top, and I think that's a really hard ask for him to do. Drakkar Klose doesn't fight at a crazy pace, so if you have really good footwork, you can sort of outwork him, you can evade some of his shots, but I think that with Garcia's style, he's going to have to plod forward a little bit more, and I think that's going to make him more susceptible to the shots of Drakkar Klose. And not that Klose is the biggest puncher in the division by any means, but if you do have a tendency to duck into shots, if you do have a tendency to move your head almost too much, which Rafa Garcia can get in trouble of, I do think Klose could set him up for a big power shot if he is able to paw the jab out there. Now, I am relying on Drakkar Klose to look like the guy he was pre-layoff, and that was a really good fighter. Now, against Jenkins, he did seem a little slow, even though he did look great in that fight. Let's just call it for what he is. He did still seem like he was getting his feet under him, and I do think that with the additional time off, he will look more like the guy that he used to. Now, Rafa Garcia is no easy fight whatsoever. He can put a crazy pace on you. He can just make the fight ugly, so I think this is going to be an incredible fight no matter who wins.
So in the comments section, Pulse Reloaded, it's just fries and gravy. No, it's not. There's cheese curds there, and you can put a meat on there if you want. I mean, the chicken poutine from Benny & Co.'s, the cat's pajamas. What else? We've got Ma Poule Mouillée for some amazing poutine. Armin, where is it? Ma Poule Mouillée. You got to let me know where it is. Maybe the next time I'm there, I will check it out. But again, yeah, minus 630 favorite. 2 knockdowns, round 1 and round 2 for Drakkar Klose's last time out. He's a decent-sized favorite in this matchup, though not as big as he once was. Minus 205 for Klose. The comeback on it, Rafa Garcia, plus 168. And if we have a look at the Fight Night Picks Instagram, 69% of the fans going with Drakkar Klose, 31% with Rafa Garcia. Matt, this is where it does come into effect. The question mark kicks. I watched a lot more tape throughout the week. I second-guessed myself all week. I'm going to switch the pick to Drakkar Klose. I think the straight shots are there. I think the power's there. And I'm going to switch the pick to Drakkar Klose. Now, I haven't switched picks in what? Like 2 months?
We've been avoiding it quite a bit.
And every time I do it, I lose. So take that for what it's worth. But that's why you watch this show with Fight Night Picks question mark kicks. Me and my brain, like Drake in Marvin's room. I'm just sitting there running through the 6 with my woes. How many references can I make to Drake? I'm going with Drakkar Klose. Prince Vegeta's son saying no. Sharif saying let's go. That's why you tune into this show. That's where the fun comes into effect. Matt, we'll move into the next fight. Definitely not switching the pick in this one. Don'Tale Mayes is taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. And if you want to know what my wife said when we were watching the ceremonial weigh-in, she goes, how old is that guy? And I said he's 29. She goes, but I'm almost 29. How is he 29?
It's like how Sonny Liston was like 30, but he wasn't really. Like, he was like 45 when he fought Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, I don't think there's like Roberto Hernandez, Fausto Carmona vibes here. But for Hamdy Abdelwahab, former Egyptian Greco-Roman wrestler at 96 kgs. Obviously, you see that in his fights. And Daniel Cormier touched on something really interesting in the full weigh-in show that they do, like when there's the actual official weigh-ins on Fight Pass. And he talked about the fact that Hamdy would take part in these Greco-Roman competitions and then like a week later weigh in heavier and do freestyle wrestling. And I found that interesting to hear about because when you watch his fights, I mean, for Hamdy Abdelwahab, his takedowns in his MMA fights are very much the freestyle double leg up against the cage, throwing his guy down. Now, he does have Greco-Roman freestyle in his back pocket for Don'Tale Mayes. I almost said Drakkar Klose. Just everything's melting together. For Don'Tale Mayes, he does have judo in his back pocket. And in his last fight against a guy in Josh Parisian that likes to just throw that heavy body on you and try and take you down, and take on Alain Baudot and beat him. If you look at that fight,
there's harder things to do in the UFC cage.
The upper body strength and the obvious knowledge of the grappling arts helped out Don'Tale Mayes in a tremendous way. And a lot of people are really kind of iffy on his striking, which is absolutely fair. I mean, you don't lose to Alan Crowder without being a little iffy on your striking. And obviously, when you do look at Don'Tale Mayes, he is a guy that's taken part for a long time at Jackson Wink MMA, obviously picked up some tools from that gym. And for Hamdy Abdelwahab, coming out of Killer B Combat Sports, you've got a guy like Corey Anderson to model yourself after. Obviously, Kyle Roberson spent some time at that gym. But when I look at this fight, Matt, for Hamdy Abdelwahab, started off as a pro mixed martial artist in 2022. He's 3-0. He's knocked guys out. But my God, the level of competition has been bad.
You know Mike Goldberg sitting at home going, we have a clash of styles tonight in the octagon. Because he would love a matchup like this. Both guys' strengths play into the other one's weakness. So it should be an interesting fight from that standpoint. Because again, Hamdy will not be able to strike with Don'Tale Mayes. Even for minutes in this fight, I do think he will struggle. Mayes does have good counter-striking. He does have pretty good power on the feet. Again, he's not some high-level heavyweight like an Alexander Romanov that gets you really excited outside of the rankings, but he can put together good combinations on the feet. And I think if Hamdy isn't able to get that takedown early, then he will really struggle against the much more experienced Don'Tale Mayes. And again, that's really what this prediction comes down to more than any other on this fight card. I don't love every fight Don'Tale Mayes has ever been in. Let's just call it what it is. But at least I've seen him fight some pretty good fighters throughout his career, whereas with Abdelwahab, his ceiling might be a little bit higher with his wrestling. He might be able to go to that well over and over and over again, but it's really hard to predict it until you see it against somebody at this level, and until he is able to do it against a guy like Don'Tale Mayes, I don't really know what his ceiling could be in the UFC.
From the chat, Phoenix saying, gotta think Hamdy's getting the fight off Masvidal's praises. It's weird. A guy that's 3-0, I understand he's 29, he has the Olympic pedigree. It's something to kind of market on the prelims of UFC pay-per-view. Why not let the guy get some more seasoning? Like, I know he's knocking guys out in the first round, but maybe 3-4 more fights, even before the end of the year, because he's doing it very quickly. And even in the fight where he's kind of tested against 4-4, it was his pro debut against Dustin Clements. That was actually the best fighter that he fought.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Tyler Lee went for a single leg, like a lazy single leg, fell down and then got hit and dropped. Matthew Strickland a month ago was not anywhere near UFC level fighter. And for Don'Tale Mayes, last 2 wins, little sporadic, but Parisian, Rocky Martinez. I do like Don'Tale Mayes in this matchup. For Hamdy Abdelwahab, if he gets the win, I think it's going to be by finish. And if Don'Tale Mayes gets the win, finish, or maybe even decision. I mean, Hamdy open to -120 favorite, plus 157 right now, replacing Justin Toff on short notice. For Don'Tale Mayes, open to plus 100, -184. So we'll have a look at the Fight Night Picks votes just to get a sense. 77% of the fans going with Mayes to get the win. I like Mayes for the striking, the longer shots. Hamdy's got to close the gap by throwing just hooks, and that's an opportunity for him to get countered, timed, and hit. So for those reasons, I like Don'Tale Mayes. But like you said, like, these guys aren't even on the periphery of the top 15. No. And this is one of those divisions that a few wins, like you're fighting Augusto Sakai.
Honestly, Augusto Sakai would handle both of these guys, and that's not a sentence I ever thought I'd say in my life again. I'm still going to pick Don'Tale Mayes for his wealth of experience, but again, with him and his ceiling and where he's going to go, you don't really know what his limit is. Like, he could beat a guy in the borderline top 15 because it is heavyweight, but he could lose to a guy coming off Contender Series.
Matt, the chat is absolutely popping off. Everybody's having a good time, and I know they're going to be excited about the next fight. Drew Dober, Rafael Alves. Let us know in the chat who you have in this matchup. Pulse Reloaded,
yes,
the old hip thrust in his last fight. So the hip thrust, you got to watch out for that one. Matt, when it does come down to this matchup, though, Rafael Alves almost finished Tamiris Magulov with like the first straight shot he threw in that fight. Came on strong in the third round, loses 29-28 across the board. His last time out, Mark Jacasey, OCR wrestler with the knee wraps, goes in for the takedown, gets caught in the submission. For Drew Dober, knock him out, drag him out type of fight against Terrence McKinney his last time out. McKinney's got a fight against Ghost Pepper Gonzalez next weekend. Ghost Pepper Gonzalez loses that fight 9.9999 times out of 10.
Is that one of the widest ranges of opponents you've ever seen? Like, Drew Dober is a legitimately great MMA fighter. I don't think there's many people who'd argue that with me.
Periphery of the top 15.
Ghost Pepper Gonzalez is like a guy.
And Malone Hart hitting up a giant super chat. Just my weekly homage to the Brothers of Doom.
Thank you, Malone Hart.
That's much appreciated. And everybody's kind of talking about Alves and Drew Dober, but yeah, that Terrence McKinney fight next weekend. Like, what? Why?
It's a one-sided one. And especially he proved that he belongs to be in there with guys like Drew Dober because that was such a competitive fight for as long as it lasted. This is my theory on this fight, though. Alves is like a roller coaster. His highs are going to be very high, but his lows are going to be very low. Drew Dober could have a fight of the night with Dustin Poirier. He could have a fight of the night with Ghost Pepper Gonzalez. He could have a fight of the night with Roosevelt Roberts. That's the type of guy that Drew Dober is. It doesn't really matter who his opponent is. He's going to get hit. He's going to land some power shots. He's going to get taken down. He's going to do some takedowns. And that's pretty much going to be every Drew Dober fight you will ever see. The one thing about Dober that I do like in this matchup, though, is that he is the slightly steadier fighter. I do think he'll be able to at least maintain more of a pace throughout this fight, because we have seen him in those crazy wars in the third round where he has to really dig deep and prove that, like, hey, I gotta win this round to really win this fight and sway the judges. So for those reasons, I do like Drew Dober, but that's the problem. When I've seen you in that many crazy fights, I do start to worry about your durability over time. And if Alves is able to land one of those big hooks that we know he can do, let's say he is able to hurt Drew Dober and Dober goes for some panic takedown. Alves has really good jiu-jitsu, and he does have great defensive submissions and offensive submissions, so I think Drew Dober has to avoid the grappling like it is the absolute plague, but I do like his steadiness on the feet.
I'm going to talk about the odds in this one really quickly, because again, at the start of the week, we were split on this one. I'm not changing the pick if that tells anybody anything, but for Drew Dober, he's about a minus 177 favorite, open as a minus 300, and all week the lines kind of dropped on Alves, who opened a plus 250, plus 149. I'm really eager to see the comments section, the votes. So 72% of the fans Fight Night picks going with Dober, 28% going with Rafael Alves. And I think for Drew Dober, if he's going to get a win, that kind of like step in, jump in, like side hook that he throws, that's one of his better shots.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he's a great looping puncher. And Todd Johnson, that is much appreciated. Williams Laban are hitting us up with the super chat earlier. Want to make sure that I get into that one. Clay is saying, I'm not incredibly confident, but I'm sticking with Alves. When I look at this one for Drew Dober, obviously the level of competition in his last 5 fights has been wild. Like, we're talking about Brad Riddell. We're talking about Islam Makhachev in a fight where, let's face it, like, he wasn't really meant to win that fight. Would have been crazy if he did. Terrence McKinney, he takes on also Alexander Hernandez, Nasrat Haqparast.
Looked great in that Hernandez fight.
Looked good in pretty well all of those fights, except for the 2 that he lost. But the telling thing for me, the last 4 fights, he was taken down 13 times. Terrence McKinney was able to take him down a couple of times in the first round of that fight. Brad Riddell with 5 takedowns. I like Alves with those quick bursts, and obviously the guy out of MMA Masters, great with his jiu-jitsu, great with his, like, I don't know how to word this one here. Like, great with those long, crazy shots. And the other thing that Alves does, those stupid head kicks that he throws, some of them, like, some of those power moves, you worry about it, the guy's going to gas. But for Alves in this one circumstance, I do like it for Alves. So split on this one, but again, I can definitely see a world where Drew Dober wins this fight.
And this is my other thing about this fight. If it does become a fight of the night, and we both think it can be, well, that definitely favors Drew Dober's fighting style then. Every minute that goes by where there's just chaos in the cage, it's going to start favoring Dober because, again, he's used to that environment. He's been there a lot of times, and he does normally get stronger as the fight goes on, especially in that type of environment. So I do like Drew Dober, but this is going to be an incredible fight no matter who wins.
Listen, the super chat has been wild. Malone Hart with that 99.99 that's still popping up there. If you can hit up the super chat, toss a like. It really does help out the channel. And listen, you folks are hitting up the old comment section, having a great time. Our next fight, this is a featured prelim, and I said it at the start of the week, and then Sammy Semelsberger hit us up in the comment section, said, listen, since my brother Matthews joined the UFC, I've been following your videos, you're doing a great job. Well, whether I pick Matthew Semelsberger in his fights or not, I said this at the start of the week, and I believe it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't. Semelsberger, when he came into the UFC, I never thought he was going to be in a featured prelim on a pay-per-view.
Oh, no.
And I say that like Carl Robertson fought Cesar Fajea in a featured prelim of a pay-per-view card. So the bar is low there, but when I do look at this fight, like, for Semelsberger, he was getting taken down, he was held down on his back, he'd get in 50-50 exchanges, and you worry about it a little bit. Obviously, he dropped Jason Witt really early on. His last time out, back and forth with Fletcher in the first round. If you like the way that Fletcher fought that first round, you might love Alex Morono in this matchup. And I said at the start of the week, this was the fight on this entire card where I saw it very much 50-50. There's a lot of people over there in the comment section. I mean, Khan is saying Semi is a lock. Alberto's saying quality content, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Prince Vegeta-san, did you see Semelsberger's tattoos? Yes, I did. When I do look at this one, Austin saying shout out Malone Hart, like, that's super chat. It is appreciated, so yes. But when I do look at this one, Matt, like, I do have a hard time on this one because Alex Morono is the more credentialed fighter who's fought the tougher competition, who's finished the tougher competition. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, owns his own gym, and he's also a Taekwondo black belt, and he mixed those martial arts well in his fights.
He really does, but this is my only hesitation with being really confident in someone like Alex Morono, especially in this matchup. Let's say these guys do get into a fight where they're in the pocket a lot, kind of in that boxing range. Matthew Semelsberger hits very, very, very hard for this division, and it's not to take away from Alex Morono's punching power, because, like you said, he does have a lot of finishes, but how do those finishes come? Let's put our thinking caps on, shall we? It's by combinations that end in kicks. It's by, a lot of volume, and then his opponent tends to break down. It's not really that one-hitter quitter. It's not that he has bad punching power by any means, but it's normally an accumulation of damage when you are fighting a guy like Alex Morono, and if Semelsberger does get into a fight where they're going 1-for-1, I do favor Semelsberger's power an awful lot more than I like Alex Morono's, and it almost might be the fact that Morono's well-roundedness is at a point to where it's a detriment, because he's good at takedowns, but not great. He's good at jiu-jitsu, but the best grapplers can out-grapple him. He's a good striker, but there's definitely other strikers who can outstrike him, so he is very well-rounded, but I think at a certain point you have to be a specialist in some point, and I do think Matthew Semelsberger's power, he might not be a specialist with his technique, but I do think his power is an outlying factor in this fight, and that's why I do like him a little bit more.
Yeah, like if Semelsberger wins this fight, I think there's guys out there and they all kind of flow in that same bottom tier, top 15 to 25. We're talking the Nico Prices, Michelle Pereira, who's on a run right now, Chaos Williams, who he's already fought, and that one was halfway competitive even though he lost the decision. But you look at the fans, 64% at Fight Night Picks going with Semelsberger, 36% going with Alex Morono. When it comes to the odds in this matchup, Semelsberger is the favorite, open to -110, so again, they were at par. -163 for Morono, coming in +136. I like I said, I'm serious. Freaking cool saying Alex is incredibly skilled as a martial artist. I mean, is that Sage Northcutt undercover rooting for a fellow guy from Texas, Katy, Texas, and what is it, the Woodlands' own Alex Morono? I do like Matt Semelsberger for the physicality, for the size, and I'm not often one to go with that. I usually go with the more skilled guy with the experience under his belt. But in this one, I like Semelsberger with the length, and I like him with the size, and I really do like how improved he's been since the regional scene with LFA to where he is right now, and I'm really eager to see this fight because, again, I could somewhat eat crow. I could see both these guys winning. If Morono wins, again, he probably gets another fringe 15 guy, but if Semelsberger wins, again, we just saw Muslim Salikov losing to a guy like Li Jingliang. Maybe they go with Salikov next or something.
That would be a really fun matchup, honestly, but I do think that's exactly where these guys are positioned. The next one's probably not against a guy who's in the top 15, but the next one sets you up to where if you win that fight, then you definitely will fight a ranked opponent. So I agree with everything you said, and this should be a great fight, too. No matter who you think's going to win or who you're a fan of, Semelsberger, Morono, they might not have the big star power of a Sean O'Malley or a Paddy Pimblett, but these are the guys who hold this whole company up by their really fun fights, and I think this will be an incredible one.
Should be a good one. Now, if you've never tuned in, and there's almost 700 of you doing it right now, so hi, thank you very much. We have the Fight Night Pick sidekick for the main card portion of this entire show, UFC 277. So if you want to join along live, you can do it here on the YouTube channel. There's a link that's already out there. It's in the playlist. You've got Amanda Nunes pointing to the number. You got Moreno, Kai Kara-France facing off. It should be a lot of fun. The first fight that's on the main card is Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Smith. And for Anthony Smith, weighed in at 206.5 his first time, dropped the underoos, and he weighed in at 206. So good for Smith. It was later on in the weigh-in window. Taking on Ankalaev, a guy who got dropped in the second round of his fight against one half next weekend's main event, Thiago Santos. He's taking on Jamal Hill. But for Ankalaev, he was able to win round 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, not round 2. Or maybe. But 3, 4, and 5. So for Ankalaev, he was able to get it done. But what we've seen out of Ankalaev here in the recent run, yes, he has performance bonuses. Yes, he has finishes. A lot more technical with his shots and a lot more cerebral. And you can see it in the way that he's been fighting. Whether it's the Uzdemir fight or on, we have Canadians for the Cup going with Ankalaev to see the third. Morales moneyline and Moreno over 2.5. It's enticing. Great work, boys. Canadians for the Cup.
Thank you.
It's appreciated. Hopefully you're a big fan of the #1 overall draft pick, Yuri Slavkovsky. But when it does come to this one, Matt, for Ankalaev, we have seen a little bit of an evolution, and people don't like it when a guy fights smart to go all the way up. But again, this is a division where you just string some wins together, and you don't have to be Elias Theodorou. You can still make some moves.
And that's why, in the back of my mind, I do think there's a chance where this fight is a little bit underwhelming from a fan's perspective, because we all know Anthony Smith comes to fight. I don't think anybody dislikes watching an Anthony Smith fight. You might roll your eyes that he main events every other fight night, ever. ever. But for the most part, they are still really fun fights. And you know that if he's fighting anybody in the top 15, it's going to be, for the fans and everyone's going to enjoy it. And Nicolae does like to be that counter striker who waits on the outside and he really wants to make you pay for his power shots when he does choose to throw them. So I do think there's a world where Nicolae, maybe he's really dedicated to the leg kick. That might cut down on some of the movement of Anthony Smith, might make him a little bit slower on the feet. And then Nicolae is able to pick him off with some power shots as the fight progresses. And that would be really smart for Nicolae to do, but that might not result in the greatest fight to watch for the fans. But I do like Anthony Smith's mindset coming into this fight. I do think he's going to try to make this fight an ugly fight. And I do think that's going to be the key when you're fighting someone like Nicolae, because we did see him get hurt in his last matchup. Now, granted, like you said, he won every single round after that, so you really can't bring up too many negatives. But if Anthony Smith hurts you, he's going to start pouring it on with a lot of volume shots over and over again. Whereas Thiago Santos at this stage of his career physically, I just don't think could be able to fight a fight like that. So I do think there's a window where Anthony Smith could clip him with a good shot, maybe put a big, steamroll him kind of with a big combination. But for the most part, Nicolae is the much more heavy-handed guy. He has the better wrestling. He's a good on-top fighter with his grappling. So there's a reason he's a minus 600 favorite. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, Nicolae is a giant favorite, and I pulled it up. I memean, 76% of the fans Fight Night Picks have Nicolae to get the win. But I wanted to find the tweet. Aaron Bronstedter's tweet: fighters with Magomed in their name have a 48-8 record all-time in the UFC. Tonight, Nicolae minus 590, which is an implied win probability of 85.5%. So I do like Nicolae in this matchup. I think the kicks are a big difference. Dan Murphy, keep up the good work, Matt. I need an NBA MMA fighter comparison for the card.
Don't worry, I'll have one for you.
Yeah, you got 5 coming up, so we'll have to throw one out there.
With this stuff.
But when it does come down to this one, for Nicolae, I mean, Anthony Smith is really susceptible to leg kicks. He's not the best at checking them, but again, remember the Jimmy Crute fight.
Anthony Smith's like Carmelo Anthony. He is a big deal, don't get me wrong, but every time you do expect him to kind of step up and do something better than he's supposed to, that's when he normally does fall. Like for Smith, he is good. He's as good as you can be without great. I think that's a fair representation. He would be an all-star, but he definitely would not be an all-NBA type player.
And when I watch Anthony Smith, the dirty, grimy type of fights, his fight against Volkan Oezdemir is the one I think of. Like, Oezdemir's got him backed up to the cage, and he's going at it. Smith's able to reverse the position, and then ultimately ended up getting the finish. Will Duke saying Nicolae by knockout. Thank you for the super chat, Will Duke. Thank you for the super chat before that. Alessandro Pantoja taking on Alex Perez. And if you like weekend lyrics, check out the original video at the start of this week. We're going to see who's able to get it done with the lights on. We have 2 really tricky flyweight fighters. And listen, I love this division. And I heard it was the Brandon Moreno fight against Kai Kara France, the first one. John Anik had like an all-time quotable. There's so much technique in this division, and that's 100% true. And when it comes down to this fight, you look at it for Alex Perez, he throws the wrestling shoes on, he is unstoppable, he can really get it done against some of the best in the division. Oh, and by the way, he's not just one-dimensional, and when you look at it for Alessandro Pantoja, great hands, great kicks, great jiu-jitsu, and great counter moves when he's on the ground, if he's ever found there. So I absolutely love this matchup here, Matt. It's one of my favorite fights on the card. I know we both went with Alessandro Pantoja, but the trouble is, what the hell does Alex Perez look like after the super long layoff? He looked pissed off at the weigh-ins, I can tell you that much.
He certainly did, and that always has to be in the back of your mind. Octagon jitters are normally only a thing for like people having their first fight, but also when you've taken 2 years off, it does take you a second to readjust yourself. And for Perez, I think the things that he does well are going to work against Pantoja. He has a great leg kick. He does have really good wrestling, but like you said, especially early on in fights, he's someone who is a great grappler, and that's what I like about Pantoja. I know second round, third round, he can fatigue a little bit with some of his grappling, but if you go back and watch some of his reversals off his back, like, it's some very, very high level stuff, and it's not always in pursuit of a submission. He can just do it for the sweep and then get back up to his feet and start brutalizing you with his boxing again. So for Pantoja, I do think he's the more well-rounded guy, even though some of his higher peaks might stand out even more than Perez's, but this should be an incredible fight. I really do think this is going to be a fun one. Pantoja, I couldn't tell you the last boring fight he's ever been in, and for Perez, you know he's going to want to prove that he is the same fighter that he was before he left, because he did oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot his name. Who retired? He kicked his leg in before.
Formiga.
Thank you. For Joselyne Formiga, like, he was a really good vet at that time who had never really been stopped, and those leg kicks absolutely destroyed him, and they looked really good against Figueiredo too, up until he got finished, of course. So I think this will be a fun fight. It'll be fought at a very high pace, but I do still favor Pantoja.
We have a look at the Fight Night picks, and 83% of you going with Pantoja to get the win. For Perez, I mean, he's definitely the more efficient fighter when it comes to his overall game plan, and and, you know, what he brings into the cage. Pantoja open minus 275, minus 188 right now. For Alex Perez, plus 235 to a plus 156. So the underdog is Alex Perez. If you really like him, maybe you want to take a shot on him. The reason I'm not picking him in this fight, again, is due to the long layoff. If I saw him fight like 4 months ago like he was supposed to, because for Perez, he's had 6 bookings fall out, and that's just crazy. Matt Schnell in 4 of them, Askar Askarov in 2 of them. I gotta see it to believe it, so Perez can get the win this weekend. I'm back on with him. Maybe I'll end up picking him in his next fight, depending on the matchup, but I just have to see it. Scott B hitting up the Super Chat is close worth betting on him, debating between him and Cosce.
I'd like him a lot more than Cosce.
Yeah, don't bet. Just don't bet. We're making picks. All right, Matt. The next fight, Matt. Derek Lewis taking on Sergey Pavlovich. Matt said that Sergey Pavlovich has beaten guys that he should have beat, and Derek Lewis would have beat them too.
Yes.
And for Derek Lewis, in his last 2 fights, he's 1-2. In his last 3 fights, he's 1-2. But against the level of competition, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, Sorogan won an interim belt. Then there was Chris Daukaus in a main event where he finished him. His last time out against Tai Tuivasa looked good in the first round, didn't look good in the second round. And so when it does come down to this one, I listen to Derek Lewis, not like, hey, how did the conversation go with Ronda Rousey?
That was so funny. Oh my goodness.
That was the funniest thing. But when you do look at it for Derek Lewis, he was talking about Sergey Pavlovich on that friggin' weigh-in show, and he said, listen, Sergey throws looping shots. I'm going to be able to counter them with straight shots up the middle. I'm going to be able to beat him. And then they asked if he's going to put his wrestling shoes on, and he kind of played a little coy. Now, I'm interested because I haven't seen a lot of crew Bob Perez this week. It's been Lauren Murphy's husband, mainly with Derek Lewis. So interesting there, because maybe you do see Derek Lewis throw the wrestling shoes on. Obviously, for Sergey Pavlovich, we've seen him get better from his time with Fight Nights Global into the UFC. Lose the debut to Alistair Overeem, but he has looked good in his last 3 fights, and he's been a little bit more active. So when it comes down to this one, you're still with Lewis, I'm still with Pavlovich.
Well, okay, the last time I saw Derek Lewis, okay, how many other people could eat those power shots that Tai Tuivasa ate at the start of that fight? Tuivasa had his back turned to him and ate like 10 full power hooks from Derek Lewis and somehow didn't go unconscious. Nobody else in the division can do that, I don't think. And yes, Tuivasa was able to weather that early storm and then put a beating on Derek Lewis. Had some really nice elbows in close. But that was the thing. He used Muay Thai to beat Derek Lewis, whereas I think Sergey Pavlovich is going to have to box Derek Lewis. And I don't think a lot of guys in this division can just purely outbox Derek Lewis. Now, I see in the chat some people saying Derek Lewis is old, and that very well could be the case. I really do think that that's the biggest crutch that people have to stand on when they're picking Sergey Pavlovich. It's, hey, Derek Lewis has been in a lot of tough fights. Maybe the wheels have fallen off, but I still do see him just losing to the top tier guys in this division. And I do expect him to beat Pavlovich, even though I don't think Derek Lewis is still the guy who could be sort of that, 3 to 5. We could throw him in a title shot. We can make a main event pretty much any show. He could still main event a lot of fight night cards, I think, especially in Texas. He's always going to sell well there. But I do think he's going to win this fight against Pavlovich. It'll be interesting to see, though, if Pavlovich can show us a new wrinkle to his game, because maybe he could just be the newest contender, sort of in with the new, out with the old, because we are seeing sort of a changing of the guard in a lot of divisions right now.
And that's the way that I see this fight. I think for Pavlovich, it was just the inconsistency of how often he was fighting. And I saw somebody throw the word inconsistency out there. When it comes to Derek Lewis' performances, I mean, some of his fights, he looks like, hell on wheels. Some of his fights, he gets backed up. I mean, hey, he does have a win over the champ, Francis Ngannou. We can never forget that one. But for Pavlovich, it was just, you got to fight more than once every 2 years. And when he was with Fight Nights Global, he was beating aging legends. He was beating Baby Fedor, Kirill Sadelnikov. But when it does come to this matchup, Pavlovich is the favorite. Derek Lewis in his adopted home state of Texas, fighting in Dallas, and he's 1-0 in Dallas. He's had 10 pro fights in Texas overall. Pavlovich minus 146. Derek Lewis plus 121. I'm eager to see the fan vote on this one at Fight Night Picks, because I have no idea where it's going to be. 53% going with Derek Lewis, 47% with Pavlovich. I think Pavlovich gets the finish in this fight. When do you think Derek Lewis gets the win?
Oh, he gets the finish if he wins.
Derek Lewis getting the finish, so just...
Well, he's the most prolific knockout artist in the company's history, so I doubt he's going to win a pitter-patter decision.
It'd be wild if he did. The next fight, the main event, Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara-France. First fight, Kai Kara-France pours on everything he's got early on in that one. Moreno rallies. It was a close one. You can make an argument either way if you'd like to. When it does come down to this one, though, Moreno's fought Devison Figueiredo 3 times. Had to get into a different headspace. Goes to Glory MMA and Fitness. You get to go away from the game plan. You've had 3 fights in a row with your main gym of Entram. You get to kind of pick the brain of James Krause. And if you look at it for Kai Kara-France, just looking amazing in his last number of fights. Obviously, the split decision, Askarov, but a very good performance against a hell of a wrestler. One of the best one you're going to find in the flyweight division in Askarov. And before that, you know the drill. I mean, poor Cody Garbrandt dropping down a weight class. It was never meant to be. So when it does come to this one, let us know who you have, because I think this is a great fight. And listen, there's no wrong answers until later on tonight.
And they're both so well-rounded, too. Like, this fight's going to be fun, whether they're grappling, whether they're in the clinch, whether they're in open space in the cage. Like, it's just a really fun matchup, because if their first fight was only 15 minutes and it was as good as it was, if you guys haven't rewatched it this week, I highly recommend doing it at some point, then a 25-minute version of this fight should also be incredible. Now, this is what I keep on going back to. I don't care who you thought won the first fight, because it was an extremely closely contested bout. But Brandon Moreno was definitely pouring it on near the end of that fight. He was screaming at Kai Kara France. He was landing head kicks, body shots. He was looking really good with his stand-up. Brandon Moreno only gets stronger as fights go on. If there's any fighter whose fighting style is more tailored towards 25 minutes than 15 minutes, okay, well, Nate Diaz is the first guy who comes to mind. Tony Ferguson's probably the second guy. But as a close third, I swear Brandon Moreno is right there. He has phenomenal volume. He gets stronger as fights go on. Yes, he ate a lot of power shots from Davison Figueiredo, and he was eating power shots later on in that fight too. But Figueiredo is an all-time flyweight. He is an outlier, not only with his punching power, but with his ability to carry his power late into fights too. And I don't think Brandon Moreno is going to have that issue in this fight. I think Kai Kara France might be able to hurt him early. He might even be able to drop him at some point in the first 2 rounds. But I think as the minutes go by, as the rounds go by, the fight is going to start favoring Brandon Moreno. He's a great grappler off his back too. I don't think Kai Kara France is going to go for any takedowns. I think that'd be a ridiculous game plan if he does. But let's say Moreno is going to the body a lot with his boxing. That's a combination he really likes to do. He'll throw a lot of volume up top, get you to bring your hands high, and then he loves that left hook, right hook to the body. If he starts landing that early in this fight and it just starts sapping the gas tank from Kai Kara France even faster, we might even be able to see a finish from Brandon Moreno, quite possibly on the feet. But last thing before I hand it off, city kickboxing fighters get way better in the rematches. Like, they do learn from their previous mistakes. That's something you love to see from a gym and from just a group of MMA fighters. So Kai could look much better, but I still think this is Brandon Moreno's fight to lose.
Imagine if they had 3, I guess, champions out of that gym at a time. I mean, Volkanovski, who cross-trains there. You've got Israel Adesanya, Kai Kara France for the interim belt this weekend. 67% of the Fight Night Picks fans have the original winner to get the win in the rematch, and the odds favor that as well. Moreno open to -160, -212, but our comment section full of Kai Kara France fans, +174 on the comeback. So Michael is saying I'm still 50-50 on Glory MMA in terms of the game planning, and I agree with you. Like, some of the time it's the weirdest, and some of the time you hear James Krause so clearly saying you have to do this, this, and this specifically instead of defend the takedown. Like, and I heard that said on the weigh-in show, but it really is true, and I think that's great. And for Kai Kara France with Eugene Behrman, obviously, like, you have 2 really good gyms going at it this weekend.
100%. What I do like out of Brandon Moreno, too, is he doesn't necessarily need his coach to tell him to make the adjustment. He can learn as the rounds are going on. It's not like some fighters out there, I can't think of any exactly off the top of my mind, there's a ton of them, though, where they don't really do anything different in or during the round. They go to their corner, and then it's, okay, now I can make this difference, I can make this change. Hopefully I have more success with the next round. Brandon Moreno can make the adjustments on the fly, and I really think that'll favor him.
Kara France defended 12 of 14 Askarov takedowns. You might look at that and go, so what? That's a really big deal. So big win for Kara France last time out.
Before we leave, though, do you think the Sergio Pettis fight is probably the one that Brandon Moreno and his camp watched the most? Because Pettis and Kara France fight in a very similar manner.
Very speedy, very compact, and if you look at their boxing combinations up top, really is a good comparison there. So, great opportunity. Maybe for Moreno, you take this camp, you go train at ATT with Kyoji Horiguchi, but he didn't. He didn't train with Horiguchi, but a lot of good fighters under 155 pounds that train at Glory MMA and Fitness. And for Moreno, obviously the height and the reach advantage. Kai Kara France does his best work in tight, so we'll see how it plays out. He was able to do that at the start of their last time. Leo's saying 29 likes. Come on, people. Got to give it the likes. There's 181. We got to toss those likes up there. Get them moving. Main event, Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes. Armchair psychologist will tell you that Juliana Pena physically looked amazing. She's saying all the right things this week. Most champions do.
She did look good.
But she did look good, and she showed up late for the weigh-ins because her coaches wanted her to get some extra sleep. So credit where it's due. She obviously had the great stare down with her daughter there. That was pretty cool stuff. For Amanda Nunes, people hate the greatest people of all time. Like, there's a lot of LeBron haters. There's a lot of Wayne Gretzky haters. There's a lot of Steph Curry haters.
LeBron's not the greatest of all time.
There's a lot of Mike Trout haters. There's just a lot of people that hate the greats. And there's a lot of people out there this week saying, Amanda Nunes, yeah, she was good, but what about it? And sometimes the best people lose sometimes. It just happens. When you look at it in this matchup, Matt, Amanda Nunes gets the right, the wrong, taking on Juliana Pena. But again, a lot of people in that camp and mindset of it wasn't a fluke in the first fight, and Pena's out there to prove it. And listen, you watch the second round of that fight, Juliana Pena fought the round of her life.
She did.
And she looked amazing in that one, and Nunes had nothing, no answers to any of it. So maybe we could see that happening this weekend, Matt. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this fight is definitely going to deliver in the rematch because we've seen a couple of fighters like Nunes didn't look bad on the scales, and she looked really fit for 130. What was it? 135 exactly, and 134.5 for Pena. So I love to see that, and I think they're both in there to put on a really good performance.
Oh, 100%. And for Juliana Pena, I did think physically she looked great yesterday at the weigh-ins. Yeah. I know a lot of people were worried about her weighing at the end of it, but like, I do believe her coaches. I don't really think there's a reason to lie about that. Now, she looked like Max Holloway at 145, like really drawn out. Okay, I'd be concerned, but she didn't look any different than she normally does when she weighs in at this weight class, so I'm not very concerned about her weighing in at the very end of that small window that they do have. I keep on going back to the fact that Juliana Pena ate an ungodly amount of damage in that first round of the fight, though. That's the thing that everybody's kind of been glossing over. Like, yes, when she's landing that jab and Nunes' hands are down by her side, she's exhausted, that looks good. But you also have to remember what Pena's face looked like at that point of the fight. It was swollen, her eye was extremely damaged, and I do think that Nunes could just go out there and even out-wrestle Juliana Pena. That's not something a lot of people have talked about, I don't think, this week. We saw Amanda Nunes when she was having trouble with JDR on the feet, or GDR, sorry. What did she do? She immediately put on her wrestling shoes and had a ton of success with her grappling, with her ground and pound. She would threaten with the submission here or there. Juliana Pena is a good grappler offensively, but we have seen her struggle in a few defensive positions, and I do think that is a game plan that could come up for Amanda Nunes. Maybe she goes out there, throws two overhand rights, let's say they both miss, and then she immediately tries to become the second coming of Ben Askren before he came to the UFC. I really do think that's probably the style that Amanda Nunes is going to fight this fight in, and I think it's a great game plan because Pena, like I said, she's a phenomenal grappler when she's in dominant positions, but we have seen her struggle, especially on the defensive end in some exchanges on the mat. And I think Nunes could have a lot of success there.
Like, I remember, Matt, it was way back when Juliana Pena made the move from the Northwest. She was going to go to Chicago. She's going to be training in a Valley Flow striking system. And I thought, gee, like, okay, cool storyline. And then she fought, and then she took forever away. She didn't fight for a really long time. On the comeback, it's been what it is. I mean, losing to Jermaine Durandamy by submission, beating Sarah McMahon, and then obviously beating the GWOAT, Amanda Nunes. So you do like to see that. When I look at the odds in this matchup for Pena, the underdog, no respect as the champ. She comes in around a plus 222 is what it is. For Amanda Nunes, minus 274. And if we have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes, I really hit a nerve with the first basketball player I could think of, LeBron James, not Michael Jordan. 54% going with Amanda Nunes to get the win. 46% this time with Juliana Pena. Does that surprise you that many of the fans have Pena to win here?
I just think it was a disappointing way to see Amanda Nunes lose. Like, we've seen champions lose their belts in close split decisions, in competitive unanimous decision losses, even in some TKO losses where they really represent themselves valiantly. But the fact that Amanda Nunes got tired, got taken down, and immediately gave her back up, like, that's the thing that I go back to. You got pissed when we were doing the fight companion, but, like, the hooks weren't even in for Juliana Pena. Her arms were off to the side, and that's the thing. When Travis Browne fought Alexei Oleinik, that was the big thing. Oleinik didn't have the hooks in. He just has a really good squeeze from the back, but Travis Browne also could have got out of that submission. If you don't have the hooks in, you can get your shoulder onto the mat and then squeeze the person off to your side. You can fight out of that position. It's not like it's an endgame spot. Amanda Nunes did not fight out of that position. She was very happy to just give her back up, and that was the end of the fight. So I'm really hoping that we do see a better version of Amanda Nunes, because if she shows up thinking, hey, okay, I might have get out cardio the first time around, but that won't happen again, then Juliana Pena could look like an all-time great again, like she did in the first matchup. But I'm still going to pick Amanda Nunes, because once an all-time great, always an all-time great, so hopefully she can make those adjustments.
Jamie Nadeau saying not as disappointing as Thug Rose fight. That fight against Carlos Esparza, that was awful. An awful one. I have Nunes in this matchup. You have Nunes as well?
I do.
All right, so listen, let that chat simmer, let it sizzle. Let's see what happens. We're going to do what we always do with Fight Night Picks question mark kicks. We're going to re-up from the bottom to the top. and have one more conversation about who we have on this card, make sure you toss a like. And we also have the Fight Night Pick sidekick for the main card portion of UFC 277 here on the channel. I'm looking forward to it. It should be great. And I have to say this, it's like a little inside baseball. I bought one of those fans that you put ice in. It's a little bit refreshing.
It's way better than it was last week.
People don't know how hot it gets, because when you have sound tiles in here, it gets hot AF. So the little fan, it's very refreshing, very nice. All right, Matt. So first fight on the card, Orion Cosce, Blood Diamond. I had Orion Cosce with confidence at the start of the week. I have Orion Cosce with no confidence now because he missed weight and didn't look all that great.
I've got Orion Cosce, but don't put any money on this fight for the love of God.
Yeah, it's sketchy. Nicolae and Ihor Potieria. I have Nicolae in this matchup. Ihor Potieria has a great opportunity. The length, the size, the hooks that he throws. He could very well finish Negumereanu. Whoops. But when I do look at this one, I do have to go with Nicolae. I mean, I like the 3-fight win streak. I don't love the splits, but I do like Nicolae here.
I think he's got much more power in his hands, and I like his wins a lot more than I like Potieria's. So I do like Nicolae in this fight.
Jeon Kim taking on Joselyne Edwards in this matchup. Joselyne Edwards missed weight. I had her with some confidence at the start of the week. No confidence now. For Jeon Kim, I like the Bang Tao Muay Thai switch up in the camp. I thought she beat Priscilla Cachoeira her last time out, who now goes on to fight Ariane Lipski next week. Ariane Lipski. And I think the Queen of Violence is going to beat her. But when it does come to this one, Matt, I have Edwards, but I don't like the weight miss.
I have Edwards unless the weight miss was so catastrophic she doesn't look at all like the fighter she used to be.
Yeah, so both of us going with Edwards. Next fight, Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugitt. Going with Morales in this one. He's a big favorite.
I'm just excited to see how Morales looks, to be honest, but I do fully expect him to win.
All right, Matt. Our next one, we have Klose taking on Rafa Garcia. Listen, it's a special New Brunswick Day play. Switching the pick. I mean, I'm going with Klose in this matchup, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a great fight, and it was really tough to make the pick switch here.
It should be a really fun fight. I had confidence at the start of the week. My only hesitation was you going against me, but now that you're picking Klose too, I'm feeling pretty good about the pick.
Oh, just like an Arsenio Hall. Next matchup, Don'Tale Mayes taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. Going with Don'Tale Mayes, I'm eager to see what Hamdy looks like against way better competition because the guys that he's been fighting are not near UFC caliber.
This feels like a parlay buster to me, though. I feel like a lot of people are confident in Don'Tale Mayes because he's the known commodity. Yeah. We've seen him in a UFC octagon many times before, and maybe Hamdy is able to use his wrestling and really translate it into the cage, but I do think Don'Tale Mayes, with his much more high-level experience, is probably going to win this one.
All right, so both of us on Mayes. Our next one, Drew Dober and Rafael Alves. I have Alves to get the win in this matchup. I think he's going to be the hammer to the nail that is Drew Dober. But I love this fight. Again, there's fights on this card that I'm not all that amped for. There's fights that I am. This is one of the ones that I'm very excited about.
This should be an incredible fight. Like I said, I have Drew Dober. Again, I think he is going to be one of those borderline top 15 fighters for a very long time to come.
Like he has been?
Like he has been, exactly. But you could definitely say the same thing about Alves. There is sort of that cushion, if you will, in every single division where it's like, hey, you need a win over one of these 5 guys. If you beat one of them, then you can get a ranked opponent next. Drew Dober basically is that opponent at this point of his career. So if Alves is able to beat him, it'll do massive things for his career, but I still have Dober.
All right, so we're split on that one. Alex Morono, Matthew Semelsberger. I've got Semelsberger based on the long jab, the power that he has in his hands, and the size. But Morono, man, he does a lot. And I had this one as one of those 50-50 matchups this week that I had a hard time trying to make a pick on. People think this is easy. Not easy.
Not at all. Because, again, I like Alex Morono's fights. Like, I get really excited to watch him fight. He's got a good gas tank. He throws a lot of power shots. He throws good volume. He throws good combinations. Like, what is there not to like if you enjoy this sport? I just think Matthew Semelsberger has slight edges in some of the factors that are really going to matter. He does have the heavier hands. I think he does have slightly better wrestling in this matchup, too, and that's why I do pick him.
All right, so both of us going with Semi the Jedi.
Oh, and he's also way bigger, too. That also helps quite a bit. I fully expect him to outweigh Alex Morono by like 25 pounds right now.
So we've got Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Smith. I like Ankalaev. I don't love the weigh-in with Anthony Smith, though he was able to make the weight when he took off the trunks. But in this one, Anthony Smith fought for a title. Didn't take the easy way out in a title fight where he could have won. Ankalaev, it's been a weird road. I mean, he loses to Paul Craig in his debut, and then he wins 8 fights in a row. So I think Ankalaev wins this one. I think his kicks are a big difference maker. Obviously, Smith, when he bites down on the mouthpiece, it's kill or be killed. It could be the Rakic fight, or it could be, I don't know, the fight against Alexander Gustafsson or against Volkan Oezdemir. So I think it's going to be a fun one. I like Ankalaev.
But that's how I think Smith's going to have to fight. He's going to have to really put a lot of pressure on Nicolae, really try to make him feel his presence in the cage, because he did almost miss weight at 205. Or let's just say he's as big as a 205er as you can possibly get, and he used to weigh 185 pounds. Like, Anthony Smith, is one of the bigger fighters in this division. I think he could have success, but again, Nicolae is just a little bit more technical in most areas, and it's hard to pick against the guy who has power and technique on his side.
Anthony Smith made Shogun Hua cry on the way to the cage before he got finished.
Made me cry after the fight, too, growing up as a Shogun fan.
Oh, man. Alessandro Pantoja taking on Alex Perez. Might be recency bias, it might not be, but I like Pantoja, the strength of schedule, so on. For Perez, obviously his last time out was November of 2020 when he took on the freight train that was Davison Figueiredo. He's fighting every other weekend, putting on crazy performances, so I do like Pantoja here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Perez looks really good in this matchup, and it's a y'all must have forgot type of moment.
100%. This guy fought for the title for a very good reason. You don't just stumble into a title shot in the UFC. Joe Soto did one time against TJ Dillashaw, but that's the only time that I can ever remember it happening. So I'll even call myself out.
Spencer fought for a title.
Okay,
and it didn't take many fights.
But it was a division that had 0 fighters in it, so it's a little different.
Malone Hart with hit the like button, please. Appreciate the super chat.
This fight should be incredible, though. Like you said, again, Perez, it could be a y'all must have forgot, like the great Roy Jones Jr., but I still like Pantoja. He is on that kind of first-team all-violence, if you will. If there was a first-team all-bar fight even, like, I'd probably want Pantoja on my team. That would probably... Derek Lewis, Jeremy Stevens, and Pantoja. That would be my all-bar fight first team. I'm very surprised.
Tim Sylvia.
I was going to say Tim Means, if anything, but I like Pantoja, and this fight should be an incredible fight.
All right, Matt. 3 fights remaining. Lewis, Pavlovich, we're split on this one. I think Pavlovich gets the finish. You think Lewis gets the finish?
I do. I think he can turn back the hands of time. We've seen Derek Lewis fight everybody, though, at this stage. Like, the only person he doesn't have on his resume is Czech Congo. So maybe they can make that happen in Bellator at some point, because Czech Congo's fought everybody just like Derek Lewis. But it should be a really fun fight in the heavyweight division.
All right. The co-main event, both of us with Mexico's Brandon Moreno to win a title back and then fight Davison Figueiredo at some point, hopefully like not backstage.
Unless Figueiredo does move up in weight. I feel like that's been something that's been rumored for a very long time. We all know his well-documented weight miss in the past against Joseph Benavidez. We all know how difficult it is for him to make the 125-pound limit, because Davison Figueiredo is massive for the weight class. Like, he's absolutely shredded, and he's like 3 inches taller than everybody else. So I do fully expect him at some point to move up in weight. So maybe we do get Moreno versus Pantoja 3 for the title. That'd be pretty cool, because Moreno doesn't really have a reason to get that third fight in right now, so if he does have the title, it would make a great storyline for the third one.
James Lloyd, I appreciate you for that super chat. Like, here, you get a Maro Yamasaki heart. A lot of people want to see him in the main event of UFC 279. Hamzat Chimaev, Nate Diaz, return of Yamasaki. No. We'll see if that one happens. Main event, Matt, Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes. Good things come in threes, and this isn't the third fight. For Amanda Nunes taking on Juliana Pena, I have Nunes in the rematch like I had Nunes in the first matchup, but boy, oh boy, there's a lot of Juliana Pena support out there, and I like it. I'm glad to see it.
Exactly. Like, if she can win this, it completely shakes up the whole division. Really, 2 divisions, if we're being honest, because who knows what they're going to do at 145 pounds. Maybe they keep the division around just so Amanda Nunes can hold a belt. I think Pena is going to show up a better version than we saw in her last fight. Something they always say in boxing, you win that world title and you immediately become 30% better because you just had that championship confidence afterwards. So maybe Pena can show a better version than the one before, but I do think Amanda Nunes is going to look more like the fighter who fought Holly Holm, more like the fighter who fought Chris Cyborg, come out with that aggressive mindset, maybe even get a finish.
Leo, too bad Pena fanboys aren't fighting for her. Well, we'll see what happens, Leo. It should be an interesting card. The sidekick is here, and it kicks off 15 minutes. 15 minutes before that main card. You can hang out. We do the commentary. We hit up the chat like we have been throughout the show, trying to answer your questions as best we can. And hey, oh, by the way, next week, look at that. I mean, a wild card. I'll turn down the music for just a second. You have Thiago Santos taking on Jamal Hill in the main event. Vicente Luque taking on Jeff Neal in the co-main.
That's a fun co-main event.
Then you have the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. Zach Paga taking on Muhammad Usman in the heavyweight division. And then you have Brogan, now Walker, not Sanchez, Brogan Walker, Brogy the Bear taking on Killer Juliana Miller. Killer Miller. It's an interesting nickname as I hit the wrong button and we get into the intro. So it should be a lot of fun. It's a fun card. I threw the votes out there for this one. I think it was like 84% of Jamal Hill to get the win, which is kind of wild. But listen, it should be a fun one nonetheless.
Exactly, and I'm really excited for this pay-per-view that we're about to get shortly. So make sure you guys tune in for our sidekick later on tonight. Let's have some fun watching these fights.
Sidekick, 50 minutes before the main card. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to all the super chats. Malone Hart with that MVP once again. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.